folks. Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, so you can download our free app to your smartphone. Stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. We had some technical issues yesterday in the studio, but what an honor it is to bring back a guy, a fearless warrior of the music, a spiritual warrior of the music, and a guy who has really, against all odds, made it, well, let's be clear, it's not the American dream, it's Lee Oskar's dream. And because we do live in the, as Wayne Shorter said, the United Snakes of America. Lee Oskar, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, Jake. First of all, I want to ask you, when I heard that version of Lowrider, I mean, I definitely knew that was me playing, but who was that with?
Okay, well, no, you are such a sharp cat. That was my recording on YouTube of you with Fareed Haq and Billy Cobham at last year's Rhythm Retreat.
Oh, that was with Billy. Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
and it sounded great, right? Because what here's the thing.
It was a jam.
It was. Let me tell you something. I want you to talk to the peeps about, because, I mean, some people are finicky about it. From my generation, I think it's been going on since the beginning of time. It was a revelation to me that you actually had never ever played with Billy, and I just want you to talk about how, just in general, how to fit into a group context when you are really not familiar with the players that you're playing with.
Well, let me ask you, Jake, I'll put it right back at you.
Yeah.
Okay, I know it's not the first time we've talked, but we haven't practiced. And the first time we spoke, did we have to practice before we spoke?
No.
Same thing. Music is language, man. If I hear something, if people are playing and they're in the pocket and they're in that zone, I'm in that zone, it's just like talking. And when you have magic, that's the naiveness that you're in the moment. If the minute you're not in the moment, the minute you're doing it like it's rehearsed, then it sounds like a freaking monologue. And if it feels like a monologue, it might sound perfect, but it doesn't feel at all. So the best music is being in the moment, and that's when you play an instrument. You know, a lot of people will play an instrument from the brain, from thinking, and there's an old saying: "There's a man's worst disease is thinking." Once you're really connected with the instrument,
yeah,
you know, then you're feeling it. The only thing that can be a detour is if I can't feel it, because maybe it's a very complex kind of changes that you got to be prepared for. It's like some fancy road map. But if we are cruising on the road, man, and we're all in the same zone, it's just feeling the pockets. And that's what Billy Cobham is all about, and that's why I love doing these things with him. It's all about the pockets. It's all about the melodies. It's not the notes. It's the melodies. It's the pockets. And a lot of times people will think that you got to fill in space. Music is creating space, not filling in space. So, you know, sometimes big pockets are very musical.
Let me ask you, though, when you were really scuffling and homeless, playing at I don't know, it was a Whiskey A Go-Go, playing with Eric Burden and those cats, and I mean, how were you? To me, that's part of the issue. You talk about, you know, being in your head as opposed to dropping from to your heart and then into the primordial gut. And the question is, when you're really facing adversity in life and you're just figuring out how to survive, how did you early on? I'm not talking about Lee Oskar now. You know, early on, being new to this country, being discriminated against to a degree in this country, financially, how did you get yourself to drop into that heart and soul space?
Well, the bottom line is, I wasn't smart enough to think of those things. Just like being in a moment. My desire was huge. My talent was probably very small, but my desire was huge. Like there's a saying, if you got 99% desire and 1% talent, you're going to eke out whatever you got, and you're going to make it happen. There's a better chance to get through the gate.
I dig, man.
That somebody's got tremendous talent, like 99% talent and 1% desire. Forget it. So it's, again, the naiveness of being in the moment is what drives you. I mean, and it's the same thing, not to go up for another spin, but it's the same thing when I started manufacturing harmonicas. And in my first trade show, I built a booth out of plywood, not even knowing I'm not supposed to do that unless you're a union. Nobody even felt any bad vibe because I wasn't trying to sneak it. I was just doing it, and by the time I finished this booth, everybody walked by in the trade show and said, "What is this thing? It's like this funky shack." Today I wouldn't do that, but I bet you that's what helped me get through the gate. It's just so.
Right. I think what you're pointing to is it's what are your intentions, right? And your intentions were totally pure in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, man. If your heart is in it, I mean, some people, I've seen people that say they look at the watch and say, "Well, I think I'm going to try it out for the next year and a half. If I don't get a hit record by then, I'm just going to bag it." I mean, if that's the mentality of somebody. There's nothing wrong with it, but what it is what it is. It means that they're not really true to their arts. I mean, the saying, starving artist. I mean, somebody like myself, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I depend on my arts to make a living. Because whether I could make a living on it or not, that's what I would be, my Jones would be. There's no compromise. It's that crazy, and that's what it takes to be really in it. That's it. Yeah.
No, actually, it's funny because you'll be thrilled because you've been so highly complimentary of my skills on the radio. I'm beginning to put together the volume 1 of my book. There's going to be like 10 volumes of it. One of the volumes relates to what I call the calling. And Dom Fumilaro, who was also at Billy Cobham's Rhythm Retreat,
right,
talked about in one of my radio interviews with him, it's almost like priesthood. I mean, it's almost like the commitment that you have to take to become a priest. The calling is that strong to be a musician that you're doing it no matter what. And there's no guarantee that the art's going to pay for your life. But you do it because there's absolutely no other choice. The music is coming through you, and the music finds you. You didn't find the music. There's no timetables on it. And what Dom was really talking about was that he doesn't see that today in younger generations. He doesn't see that calling, the idea that it's beyond scuffling. I mean, whatever. I mean, Art Blakey was a junkie. I mean, these guys had rough times. They still carried it through. Even guys that we can, consider shamans, in the folkloric view of music. I mean, can you talk about? I know we vetted that early part of you coming to the States, but even back in Denmark or or in Europe, that calling. When was it evident to you? Can you give an example of how strong that calling was when you were just a kind of a young man?
Well, I don't know how to measure. I know that from the time I got my first harmonica at 6 years old, I was always dreaming and fantasizing as being a conductor, composer, and So it wasn't like one day I decided to go and do this. It evolved, and I really don't. It's a very gray area if I was to, pinpoint a particular point in my life. Though everything was that subtle. It's been part of me, embedded, from very young. But what I do want to say is that based on what you just finished saying is that, there's no guarantees, but because I have the Jones, I'm a junkie to this, so I'm so in it. The only day I will know that it didn't work out for me is the day I'm dead. Right. What I believe, even though I'm still I'm still trying to get the record deals. I mean, I'm producing so much stuff right now. I'm so in love with that. I think I want the world to hear it before I'm dead. But and I'm not saying, well, I'm not going to finish the record. I'm not going to invest in this. I'm not going to do this till I get a guarantee from somebody that they will commit to my project. It doesn't work like that for me. I mean, if I got the Jones to build a sculpture, I'm not going to wait for someone to commission me. I'm doing that sculpture, damn it. I'm painting that canvas, and that's just how I live.
Talking to an absolute fearless musical warrior, Lee Oskar. Such an honor to be able to talk to him after yesterday's hijinks and technical difficulties. What was most inspiring, outside of our Facebook Live interview that over 7,000 people have already watched and are having a ball? Talk a little bit about that experience. Have you done? I assume you haven't really done retreats like that before. Maybe you have, but what did you come out? I mean, you have a lot of drive, but part of the drive is constantly learning. You keep wanting to learn. What did you take away from the whole experience last year with the Art of the Rhythm section retreat?
To be quite honest, I mean, I always like to be, not sugarcoat anything. I mean, first of all, I live for music. I live for sharing my knowledge, whether it's from the business side to just jamming, music, everything. I mean, I'm in my zone. But a guy like Billy Cobham brings out those things in me that I had even more when I was younger, and being maybe intimidated or being. I was always afraid someone's going to say, you're not a musician if you can't read music, or you're not this and that. So I would even BS. I mean, whatever it took to get through the gate. So what would be accountable was when they hear me play. Nothing before, nothing. So my credentials, I didn't want nobody to rely on. I wanted to be what I can do in the moment. And a guy like Billy Cobham, who's like one of the greatest of all times as a drummer musician, and has played some pretty elaborate forms of music that I don't think some of the stuff I would be comfortable in my zone, because they're not always grooves with a pocket and with a few chord changes. I mean, they go. I mean, he's played some amazing compositions. So I didn't know what I was going to lean on till I had conversations with him prior to the retreat. And at that point, I said, wow, this guy's just like me, man. We're talking the same. We complain about the same stuff. We love the same things. And that kind of already got me comfortable. And once I was there, and I was being melodies, pockets, phrasing, the things that I do naturally, and I was welcome to be in that arena rather than trying to fit in something that wasn't necessarily musically for me. It was great. So when I walked away, it made me feel really good. It just added to the confidence that no matter what level we as musicians in the craft of skills, the one thing that we have in common is how does it feel, and how do we play in that moment, in feeling things. And that's where we have a common denominator, whether you went to conservatory music or illiterate or don't know how to read and write. Bottom line is, how do you play, man? How do you tell a story? How do you feel it? And when I find that has a commonality between me and Billy Cobham, I say, man, that was cool. That was great. And so I'm looking forward to coming back,
Oh, I mean, because, let's be clear. I mean, I know you are 100% right about compositionally Billy playing on the drums, very complicated, odd time signatures, maybe things that would require charts and things like that. But, the thing I love about Billy is that I didn't always know this, but, he's just always looking to say, how can I set this guy up so that he is in his zone? I want to accommodate so that I can make this cat feel comfortable so he can be himself. He's not going to, he's not going to tell you, we're going to play this odd metered, Mahavishnu orchestra thing. Good luck, Lee, study up, man, good. There are people that will do that, and it's like that takes all the fun away from it, because then you're just sort of you're in your head because it's not your wheelhouse. To me, what I was seeing there was this idea of last year's retreat, staying in the groove and not pivoting out so quickly, but just like laying on that groove. And that's the Lee Oskar, Papa D. Allen, Harold Brown, Billy Cobham. I mean, I've been listening to religiously Son O Son.
Oh, wow.
And you're the interweaving between you and whoever was playing flute on that, it's just hypnotic.
Charles Miller and me, we were the horn section, and that was, I don't mean to cut you off, but I got to tell you, Son O Son was the first time I got a taste of what I was always wanting to do, including before with Eric Burden and being the horn section. And when I came with that line and Charles Miller was playing harmonies with me, man, that was it. I finally hit home what I've been wanting to do for years. Yes.
I'm so happy to hear that, because I've had that on my. I've been on the road a lot, and it's just like to hear that. I heard you the other day coming through, and I'm said, boy, Lee is just grooving, and that's the first time that you really felt that experience. That you really felt that.
Yeah. It was the first time. I mean, I did horn lines prior, because that was the whole idea, me and Charles Miller on sax playing the horn section. So with Eric Burden, from the day we played, I got my dream came true. But the first time I really felt it was like it became like the class thing that I always wanted to have, is these melodies playing as horn lines. And Son O Son was definitely a highlight.
It's one of my. I mean, it's just. I encourage anybody listening to go and that album itself is. It used to be my least favorite War album, but now, because I was just more into the sort of radio friendly, funky tunes. But then now all of a sudden it's like War drums and Son O Son and Back Home and Did you guys ever play with share a bill with the Crusaders?
I played. I knew Wayne Henderson. I knew the Crusaders very well. Yeah.
Can you talk about when you could? Because Wayne was a Jehovah's Witness. He used to. One of my sponsors is my dentist here in town, who grew up in Compton, and Saturday morning he's sitting on the couch watching cartoons. Wayne Henderson's knocking on his porch door, talking about his spirituality, and the next thing you know, my dentist is out. He's a tenor sax player, my dentist, and they're out front and they're talking about playing horn arrangements and music, and it's like, and what did you talk? Can you talk a little bit about? I mean, Styx is still alive, but what was your relationship like with Wayne and Wilton and Joe and those cats?
I didn't know any of them. I mean, super well. We didn't go out and hang out every day and back in the days, but we did hang out at times. And first of all, I was very fortunate. I got off the streets. I got Stu Levine and Shoemaster Kaler. They took me in, and through them I met. The Jazz Crusader, Wayne Henderson, and all the guys basically. They musically they had a thing going on, and it's funny if you talk about the business side. They were called the Jazz Crusaders, and then they dropped the word jazz because jazz. People judge music by categories.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
In the mix.
Yep.
When somebody asks me what kind of music do you play, I ask them, what kind of music do you like? And whatever they say, I play that.
So you're the one that told me that. Yeah, no, that's the classic line. I've been telling people that instead of when people say, what kind of music you play, you say, well, what kind of music do you like? And then you can play it.
The reason I say that is because at the end of the day, the only reason for categories, and I told you that before, is for librarians or marketing. Otherwise, it's music or it's not music. Depends on how somebody plays. If one person says it's music, somebody else says, I don't like it. But either way, come and experience when I play, and then decide after you hear me play, then see if you want to ask what kind of music is that, or what kind of music do you play. In other words, the music itself should speak for it. If you're judging a book before you read the story, if you're judging the category before you're listening to it, you know what? You've defeated yourself by pitching to it. So the jazz had a all of a sudden not as a good image, let's say, in the commercial world. So the jazz creators call themselves crusaders, and why not? Why should they be stigmatized as just jazz, just because they're instrumental? And and that's the same way I speak when I talk, when I play, when I compose and I record and produce and all that. I look at the world as my canvas, and I look at anything I create. I don't say, well, let's do a country album and think what country is. I just say, let's do whatever comes through me, just like when I paint on the canvas, is what it is. And if anybody gives himself a chance to listen to my music without any pre-intended ideas, and let it just touch you, you might just find that the music will really move you without having to think about, well, what does everybody else think about this music, or what kind of music, what kind of music is it? That's all, to me, that's only for librarians, where do I file it, or for marketing, telling.
Oh, no, I mean, it's hurt the ability, vocabulary of music to grow, and I also wonder about audiences, have they been so indoctrinated with genres that they don't even know, like, for instance, the story you told me, you said, you used to perform Cisco Kid, you go to a gig, somebody say, you guys play square dancing music? And you're like, yeah, of course you play Cisco Kid. And they're like, that's the greatest square dancing music in the world. I could see, and
then at the concert we were playing Cisco Kid, this whole group of country people were doing the square dancing too. They came up, my golly, that was the best square dancing music we've ever heard.
But I mean, I can almost see today people stopping and almost saying, that's not square dancing music. Like, I feel like people's ears have gotten locked, Lee. Like, that, the part of it is just sort of the palate of the customer or the audience. And that was my question is, did you find yourself, when you started to be that horn section, as you like to call it, Son O' Son, prior to that, were you getting off on Charles Lloyd and James Moody and horn players, or was it more like Norton Buffalo?
No, I don't. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to cut you off again. I never got a turntable record player until I got Eric Burden. And if I was fixated on listening to anything, it would have been Ray Charles, Roland Kirk, because Eric introduced me to Roland Kirk and a few other people. I have never been the kind of person where I can sit down and be inspired listening to somebody's record and try to capture those melodies, hook lines, whatever. It's almost the most difficult thing for me. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I won't do the same thing twice. I just play in the moment, and of course I've gotten better where I can repeat something where before I couldn't. So I can replay the same composition over and over again. But every time I play it, it's going to be phrased in the moment. And when I have somebody play saxophone with me, and to make for the sound that I got with harmonica and sax, they better not practice the phrasing and think that's where I'm going to phrase it every time. You better be in the moment. You know the melody, but phrase it in a moment as I phrase. We phrase together.
I dig. Well, can you talk about Rasan, Roland Kirk, and what it was that?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Eric Burden, first of all, since I was new, I've never had a turntable before record, and Eric Burden played me some Roland Kirk stuff. It was unbelievable. That's when I realized on his flute, he played like the nose flute and the regular flute, and he'd be singing to the flute, that stuff. That's where I realized Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson, actually got his stuff from. And that made me realize one more time, like other people I've seen through the industry who have really been influenced, literally copying somebody else, and that may not be well known. And the person like Ian Anderson gets well known, everybody's praising him and if he was really right on, in my opinion, he would have gave props to Roland Kirk from the get-go, because Roland Kirk was one of those guys. He was a genius. He played like even 4 saxophones, sometimes just 2 or 3, but even 4 saxophones, a nose flute and rectal flute. And he was even booed off stage at the Newport Jazz Festival because when people see somebody playing all these instruments at the same time, they're not listening to music. They visually looks like he's a clown.
Right.
And so he got booed. But when they actually got to hip to how amazing musically he does these things with multiple saxophones, it was unbelievable. He got invited back next year, and matter of fact, that they did a record called live. It was called Voluntary Slavery, and Flip Wilson was going on after his show, and they wanted more of Roland Kirk. And Flip Wilson said, "Take it on my time." I mean, it's right on the record. It's really a very dramatic, in my mind, somebody that amazing that got some acknowledgement. You know, there's a lot of people who are incredible who never got any acknowledgement, but his acknowledgement, Eric Burton introduced me to him. I went to New York. Roland Kirk was playing down in the basement with there's about maybe 8, 7, or maybe 10 people max in down there. He was playing to an amp, and the amp broke down, and a guy came out of the audience to want to try and fix it, and he pushed the young man away and went in there and did whatever he had to do to tweak it and kept playing. I mean, if it wasn't for Quincy Jones and people like that, Roland Kirk would not even been known as much as people like yourself who know him by Rassam. You know his nickname.
Of course, yeah.
He was, and he died of a broken heart, man. I mean, his records. You want to hear broken glass and stuff. He got very angry because the bottom line is, Jake, why I'm saying all this to you is that acknowledgement is probably the greatest gift any artist can get. I mean, if I was at a desert island where there's no other human beings, sooner or later I'll realize that music or painting, as I do, would mean nothing because the snake, the birds don't relate to it. So in this world I'm in, you and I talking and all that, music is profoundly a way of expressing that if you don't get acknowledged, it's like dying. If you get acknowledged, that's the greatest reward as an artist, And even when I do concerts today, I like to call them a benefit without crisis. That means that support the music, support me, and support my colleagues, support anybody who is in their prime playing. Support the music while we are healthy. Don't come and support it when I need a freaking liver or I'm half dead.
I mean, have you traded? Speaking
maybe
of,
I can even buy health insurance that way. But people who are not acknowledged is an awful thing. I mean, because as a starving artist, as a Jones, as being an artist, and you live for that, there's nothing.
Do you have to do you think it's important to be acknowledged by your peers as well, not just the audience?
Yes.
And I say that because I'm going to say this to you now, and then you can riff on it any way you want. But I just was up in Seattle with Michael Shreve, and
oh yes,
Michael, and I know him not nearly as well as you do. But he has a very I mean, quite frankly, the whole Woodstock thing was. He's been trying to figure out how to get out of that his whole musical career, and he likes to make music that is very aesthetically pleasing to him. In any event, Carlos Santana texted him and said, "Hey, do you want to do something for Woodstock 50th anniversary?"
Yeah.
And Mike was like, "Thanks, no thanks. I don't want anything to do with it." And there was a variety of reasons for that. He doesn't want to be. He did that already. He doesn't want to be remembered as the old man playing what, that's not what the imprint is. But more to the point, this leads right into what you were just riffing on, is that, he said to me, he goes, I have sent those guys, that group of guys, Neil Schoen, and I've sent them so much of my own music, and they've never listened to it.
Yeah.
Ever, and it really impacts him. I mean, to the point where He's pissed. Like, I mean,
Well,
not
it's a lonely. You can be pissed, but behind that layer of being pissed, you really more. You're hurt and
sure,
you feel lonely.
absolutely, and that was revelatory to me because, you know, well, just because of what it was just revelatory to see the hurt, and that was one of several reasons why he just didn't want to take part in, you know, this extravaganza, and I. So when did you first feel like that you were valued or recognized?
The first time I felt I was valued or anything was when Eric Burden embraced me and then the guys. That's when I really got. That's when I even got relaxed and realized I didn't have to BS about saying I know how to read music and all that. I mean, I could arrange. I was great in arranging and stuff, but I couldn't. But I was illiterate in writing it down. It's like, but the most important thing is always. It's not whether you can write or not. It's how can you tell a story. I mean, I'd rather embrace somebody who can tell a great story but doesn't know how to write than somebody who knows how to write and read but can't create a story.
That's right. Oh, it's neat.
So I learned to get rid of the demons of the things that was this a stigma of what you would be considered a musician or not. And I got liberated. I mean, Eric Burden was amazing because on stage he would make the stuff up, and we were just there creating stuff, making stuff up with him as he was journeying off and wherever he took us on a journey with his singing and lyrics and all that. And that improvisation was, which I, without even really realizing it, was home for me. If Eric Burden was a guy who said, hey man, I like the way you play, John. You know, I want to put a new band together, and I want you to be in it. And everything was arranged how he wants and all that, but without being loose and all that. Two things is I would have not have done a good job. Secondly, but I guess just one thing, I would not be able to do that. Or maybe secondly, if I did, or everybody else did too, the band wouldn't last that long because. If you're doing something as a monologue and you're leaving out creativity, where in the hell are you going to let go? What, when you're not gigging? I mean, in other words, so if you're making a livelihood in music and that's gigging and all that better be the home for where you really feel the emotions. So it's got to be in the moment. And back to you know, when I got the chance of doing that with Eric Burden from the get-go, and I was liberated. I felt great. It's in the later years when you realize that people were not really rooting for you or the band. It was more politically the record company guys were whoever was paying the check. You know, if they were with a record company that we were with, they would make us feel at the show and tell you it was great. And then you start realizing it was a lot of people just in the business tap dancing and worrying about how they're going to keep their job and have no clue about the music. You know, there's a lot of BS that goes with it. And that started to become aware of things. And I didn't go and drown myself. I didn't go dramatic. I just learned, hey, that's the game in the business. But there are people out there and there are peers out there who we can really have that real connection. And now that I'm older, Jake, it's like, thank God, I'm now at an age where people that were competing with me, not even knowing it, now they're comfortable going up and say, hey, Lee, man, I ducked that thing you did back then and this and that.
Right.
Well, I remember when we were in the prime, you know, hit records back then, I didn't get that kind of feedback then. And I realized it was just rivalry. You know, it's so silly, but it is.
Well, it's insecurity too. I mean, I just got on the phone with the drummer Bobby Caldwell, Captain Beyond, and he just talked about Dwayne Allman. You know, when he got a gig with when Bobby got a gig with Johnny Winter, they were up at the Chelsea Hotel in New York, and the Allman Brothers were there, and when he walked in, he had already known Dwayne, and the minute that Dwayne found out he got the gig, he was genuinely happy for him. Like, he was psyched for him. It was really a communal situation. I mean, I think part of it is also, it's easy for me, like literally there's nobody doing anything close to what I'm doing in terms of disseminating the material. I mean, I mean, we're talking on the radio, so there's going to be an audio podcast to this. There's going to be transcriptions in print.
Right.
And ultimately, you get feedback based on the numbers of social media, but also just people you don't even know vibrationally, just the stuff going out there. So, it's kind of easy to it's easier to compete against yourself sometimes. But yeah, it's interesting when somebody comes up to you and is like, "Yo, Lee, man," someone that you considered, sort of not an enemy, but somebody you were apprehensive about back in the day, and then all of a sudden they're raining down props on you, and you're just like, wow, I didn't know that at the time. It's just funny,
Exactly. But Jake, to put this to a point about this whole thing is that, again, just like in the Ms. Michael Sweet and all that, people will pitch and toe things when they find out who I am based on the tunes that are hits, like Lowrider, Cisco Kid, Slaving in the Darkness, White Cable Fence. I mean, a slew of hits. And I always, to me, I've learned, hey, it's good to have credentials that allows you to get through the door. But once you're through the door, I only wish that means that they would be excited to hear, as they tell you they're so excited about meeting me and all that, and that they would love to hear the new music, because the new stuff I'm doing is the best stuff I've done. And my philosophy is that I don't, what's the best I can do is what I haven't done yet. What's the best right now is what I'm doing right this moment. And I got some amazing music I've just finished composing. I've recorded that I'm a little later this year. I'm going to have it all ready to be released. I don't necessarily have a record deal with all of it, but I'm going to work it out online with fans. Hopefully I can work within my fans and build out. I got so much stuff that is more important to me than anything ever in the past as far as musically. And I just hope that the sensationalism, as we know, drives people to be in awe about and want to be associated with. I hope that doesn't always become most important. I hope that there's the pure sense that people want to hear what I'm doing now, and when they hear it's being released, I hope all those people out there who say they're fans or maybe want to be fans or find out about me really, really would engage and acknowledge the new music when I can make it available, because that's what I live for. That's what I live for.
Well, I know you do, and I would preface it by saying that I'm not going to say, temper your expectations, but we're just living in a time with producers and arrangers, not that you have those, but it was just an open, fertile ground back in the day when you had the ability, as you had the artists in general had full creative control, and people were actually looking and wanting to hear something different and something unique. And now it's like, I need to hear stuff that's familiar. And so, that makes me want to dance because I know that song, and I'm uncomfortable when I don't know what I'm hearing. And it's kind of like that. I would almost write in the liner notes, however you're going to package the music, is just the idea of really saying, I'm digging what I'm doing more than I've ever in my life, and I really hope you dig it.
Yeah.
But even if you don't, I'm still going to play. I'm going to still continue on, because this is my passion, and I'm doing stuff that's completely revolutionary. I just feel like in the times that we're in, it's great to have a fan base, but we've been inculcated with this whole thing of, the only cats that are on the touring circuits exist now for bands so baby boomers can go and hear the songs that they heard on the radio 50 years ago.
And they will go out and listen to a band who's pretending to be us, War.
Right.
Because the name War is what the ex-manager has the rights to. And so people will go out and hear all these tunes that we created with a band that is really just a cover band, but under the name Wall. Yeah, that is. But I think to be honest about it, human nature it's been that way in every generation, because even when the Beatles were, who has outlived even the times and know that it's amazing music. I mean, they were considered like confused with the mediocrity, and the people that were older generation, they would say it's junk, and they would lean on what they thought was their generation music. So there's always been that thing where people will be sentimental or hold on to what they maybe the window of whatever they grew up with. But it's always been mediocrity, has always been the majority. I don't care what generation. Today it's much more homogenized, because the music industry has created such sensationalism that people are more occupied about, oh, you're a musician or you're a star. I mean, it's like they're more fixated about the status of things rather than being moved by the music. And that has changed a lot, and that's just human nature, just like fashion or anything else. I mean...
Well, I also it goes deeper than that, because these guys can do whatever they want, but I just don't know how we've gotten to this point where music is made for dancing, okay? It's and so many. I was up in Bakersfield, California, and Elvin Bishop's got a trio there, and they're selling tickets for $20-$25, which it's okay. It's not a big, not a huge amount of money, and they're pointing out the seating chart, and I said, "Where's the dance pit? Where's the?" They're like, "Well, this is a sit down concert." I said, "What the hell is going on here?" I said, "This music is made. Let the body dance." I can't tell you how many times I've been up front at a concert rocking out, and someone taps me on the shoulder. "Excuse me, can you sit down? You're blocking my view." It's
but but wait a minute, Jake. See, okay, Miles Davis, he got pissed off when people were dancing. If you had a symphony, listening to a symphony or an opera, I mean...
I'm not dancing. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about completely psychedelicized music. Music that is completely me. I'm just saying, there's this sort of... part of it is that I don't know why we got to the point. I don't think anybody was sitting there gawking at Lee Oskar or Lonnie Jordan or Dickerson's facility or chops. People were grooving to the music, and now because of academia, because of this sort of lack of opportunities to play live, like you said, this homogenization of sound. Everybody's comping, trying to sound like other people instead of sounding like themselves. Yeah. It's just like, I dig what you're saying. There's certain situations where...
let me just say this, Jake. There's nothing wrong with dancing. I would never want to play in my home, like a lot of the zydeco music, unless I am got a bunch of people having a party and we're dancing and partying. But to me, and a lot of times, where in a lot of situations, music to me is a very spiritual thing. Not only just physically moving, but some music can profoundly take you into a deep place. Some places you don't want to go. Other places might be emotionally where you can deal with it. Brings out things that, it'll make you cry and all that. And my world, when I talk about doing my music, I do all of it. Or that's all part of me. I'm going to send you some of my new projects. I'm going to share this with you even before it's released. And I would love to hear what you feel about, what touches you or not.
I'll give you a full breakdown. Yeah, I'll give you a full breakdown of the whole thing.
Some things are very symphonic. Some things that'll tear your heart out that are just, it'll make you feel like you're watching a movie. You're not dancing necessarily. There's maybe spots where it moves, but it'll take you in a place. I will hope so.
Yeah, no,
and there's other things that are just like bright, like sunshine, the beach, the Caribbean. I mean, there's two different projects right there. One is called Never Forget, which I'll tear your heart out, and then the other one is just make you live like life is beautiful and all that, and that's called Cricket in the Box, Lee Oskar and Friends, and they're two different things.
Were you able to I mean, you played every. Did you have a band that hit at the same time, or was it all you putting it together?
These are all things I composed. On Cricket in the Box, a couple of things are composed by me and Harold, but most of it is that I've composed. And when I produce, it's not all live, even though it makes you'll feel like it's all in the same moment, because that's why I love producing. I know how to produce without it have to be all played live at the same time.
Well, I mean, is it a drum machine, or is it a real person playing drums?
Oh, no. I mean, if I want to use a drum machine, I'm for effects. I'm not stuck with what's real or not, because it's all real to me. But all this is, if you think of organic, is all real percussion, real drums, if you want to call it that, real strings. There's no keyboards playing strings. I have symphonically pieces that are like multiple strings orchestrated and other things. I mean, now you'll see it. It's journeys. Just like My Road, Our Road album that I created. It takes you in a journey from Edward Hawkins singers to Ayetz or Flor Karim. I mean, I produce these people on my record. I love producing. I love to compose and create a journey. It's so no. These are all. It's amazing stuff. I'm so excited. I'm so freaking excited about getting this stuff released. It'll be candy to your ears in many different ways.
I guess I mean, I just have a really hard time with synthetically created music. I mean, even if it's, I want the feel to be round. I want the notes to be round. I don't want the rhythm to be vertical. It drives me insane. And
you're not gonna have no.
So no. But here's that's the technical part of it. My question is this: you're so giddy about this stuff, okay? So how in the past, with let's see. As an example here, with let's see here, I don't know what label you have to help me with the label, but like your self-titled album, Lee Oskar with the harmonica on the front from '76.
Yeah, the first album I did, solo album called Lee Oskar, right?
Right. So in the past, you'd have a record company that would allow you to then tour with this music. Maybe
no, they wouldn't allow it. It's not. Unfortunately, I never really did tours with any of these albums. I always wanted to, but they couldn't afford it.
So let me ask you something. How is it good enough for you to just get feedback from fans and other people about these recordings? It's not something. It's not.
Okay, I see where you're going.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like how do you get it out of your system beyond that? Yeah.
Would I be satisfied just for people to enjoy my records without performing live?
That's right. That's right.
I love both. Okay, to me, it's like, if I was an actor, do I like just doing acting Broadway live, or do I also enjoy producing amazing stories that can go beyond in treatments that you can't do live on stage? I would do that too in movies. If I was to do live today, let me just say this: when I did the albums back then, some of it actually used real strings, 38 strings for My Road and all that. Before the Rain, it used 8 strings. I was adamant that I want to go on the road and perform my stuff, but I want to have it orchestrated like I did on my records. And the record companies or anybody that I had to help support it made it impossible. There was no budgets for that. And And I've learned since those days, now I can go anywhere and hang with anybody and play my compositions with the chemistry in whoever I have to work with, and know that whether there's no strings or whether, and every keyboard player, by the way, plays different, so I'm not even going to make them play exactly the same way I had the person do when I recorded. So I'm going to make sure that whatever I got to work with is going to be at its best instead of trying to force it to do something to emulate the record. And at the end of the day, it's going to feel as amazing as it did another time with other musicians or another arrangement. So I've grown a lot in not being so pitch and toed. And with that said, that's when I produce records today that I'm even more open than ever. Playing for change. I love all instruments. I love all performance. I love mixing it up. I'm not one of these things that call it pure music. I am pure music because I play in a moment. Those cults that say it's bagpipe players or this is how we real blues, Chicago blues. To me, that is the most unpurest thing. That's not pure at all because they're all mimicking what traditionally somebody did that everybody else is trying to paint numbers doing the same thing. So I'm always open. So when I have recording possibilities where I can produce stuff that is unbelievable, beyond even what I could just do on a given day live, that to me is an amazing experience to introduce musically to people too. So it all is valuable to me, Jake. It's not about just playing live. It's all valuable. Did I talk too much?
No, that was absolutely poetic. And I loved your vigor. As we wrap up, we've been on the phone here 55 minutes. What are you? Again, there's no gimmicks. I'm not saying there's gimmicks. You bring the real deal. Being that you've had 1 year under your belt at the Rhythm Retreat with Cobham, what is your focus? What is your internal drive point of view this year? What do you want to bring that's different from beyond the pockets and the grooves? What's wetting your whistle these days?
I don't have an agenda. I don't have something in mind beyond that. I don't even have something in mind within that. The best I can be for anybody else and serve well, and to be the best of me is to just be so in tune with the chemistry of what is there, and the naturalness of what I can put to the table is when it feels right, you can watch me. When it don't feel right, you can tell it ain't feeling right. In other words, if it's in the pocket and if it's happening, boy, it's like, man, there's nothing like it. It's just, it's just that right on. And that's not something I can premeditate. That's not something I have a formula and this is how you do it. That is totally a conflict to make it happen. The best thing you can do is be what you do naturally and be that energy.
Lee Oskar, I cannot wait to hang with you in July. FYI, I don't know what you and Shri are doing the week right before the Rhythm Retreat, but I got my first major break, man. There's like a Latin dentist. His name's he goes by the name Dr. Rock, Bernardo Gonzalez, and he is in San Francisco. And he is sponsoring, or with the help of other sponsors, on the weekend of July 13th, I am moderating a Woodstock 50th anniversary panel at the Brava Theater in San Francisco with two of your buddies, Michael Shreve and Greg Arico.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I just say it would be, I mean, I'll see you a couple days later at the retreat, but if you guys are open, I would be honored to have you come and
I would, what, I would love to, but and if there's a possibility I'm at Milano, at the Milano shop, music instrumentals, the store there at Milano. in Mesa. I'm planning to do a workshop. I want to do a clinic, a workshop there, and it might just be coming in earlier before Billy Copham's retreat.
Oh, I dig
and
that.
do that.
Oh, wow.
So,
when do you know? Well, listen. All I'm saying is the you know, it's a circle filled with love, man. Because even if you can't make the event, you know, those cats. There are two better cats in the world than Greg and Michael, and I know you know that firsthand beyond anybody else, and I feel honored that, because basically Michael's not going to Woodstock, and neither is Rico, and this guy said, well, you know, do you have the weekend open? And Michael was like, yeah, you know, and he's like, well, what if Jake Feinberg did the moderating? And that really piqued his interest. So, you know, man, it's just it's love, man. That's it.
Yeah, man, that's great. Well, you deserve. Listen, you know, nobody's going to acknowledge shit that don't work. I mean, you know, I'm not going to acknowledge flat tires. When stuff works, I'm going to acknowledge it. And there's nothing greater than having somebody in your shoes who do your homework, who is I don't want to say fan, I want to say more you are a journalist in observing and seeing things, not just historically, but also from just the chemistry of things. I mean, you really engage, and you've reeled. I mean, what you're doing with me is you're reeling me in to talk about and say things from a slant and angle that nobody's ever brought out. Nobody even wanted to hear my philosophy, and you just. I mean, I find myself, wow. I mean, I talk more than
dude. I mean, come on, you know. Listen, man.
I'm saying that because you engage. You're great at that, man. So and that's a special talent, you know. You know, Johnny Carson had a great late night show. I mean, and he made it so simple that someone say, you know, boy, that guy's lucky. He just sits there and interviews people. Every day he's got to have it, make it look right, and make everybody. I mean, there's an art to how you engage with people, and everybody would like to feel they can do it, but only some people have that talent, and you're one of them. So, congratulations, and thank you for having me on board. That's all.
Well, listen, man. What you said means the world to me, and you know, I see myself as somebody who is trying to connect with humanity first, because I do have chops to go across the board and not just do artists and musicians, but I can, you know, do anybody. But the truth is I'm always searching for my truth or the closest thing to that. And the cats who go there with me are you guys. It's my job to extract that information and get inside your minds. After 8 years and 4,000 interviews, I think I'm doing okay. So, I mean, we'll be in touch. I sent you a link to that YouTube of that clip we opened with at the beginning, so you can check it out, because there's a lot of cool dialogue in there too that you should watch. And then send me those music tracks, and I'll get back to you on it.
I will. I'm going to save it. I'm going to send that to you, and then I'd love to see how you feel about it.
I'm going to get back to you about it, Lee. All right. Much love to you, man. You keep going forward, man. Straight ahead.
Thank you for having me on board, man. Thank you.
Bless you, man. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Be well.
Be well. Bye bye. Benefit Without Crisis. Lee Oskar in the books. Captain Beyond. Great day on the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you tomorrow with Mike Dacey and Kate Gaffney. Until then, this is the Jake Feinberg Show. Peace.